All right, let's get you guys going on the second half of the song here. So this is usually pretty simple to initiate. If I have some ideas going into it, then obviously I will go ahead and start to work with it. But if I don't really know what I want to happen right after the drop, what I'll start doing is just copying and pasting. So first of all, let's go ahead and just get this pad synth back because we know we're going to use that for the cooldown through the second verse here. So let's work on this part. Before we do that, let's just talk about what I mean by cooldown. Really, it's just you could call it a post chorus, even though it's not really technically. I guess it could be, but it's just a section where after the drop stops, we want to cool the energy. We want to bring it down for a second. I don't want to bring the verse, the lyrics, the vocals quite back in quite yet, but we do want the music to just kind of relax for a second. It's pretty intense. So we talked about that energy dynamic, and that's what we're going to work on here. So we're going to keep working on gold tracks. I know you guys can see that I have some of my other colors highlighted here. This just to make sure we're doing this correctly. So if I had nothing to go by, first thing I would do is just grab my pad synth because I know that that sound is going to carry through pretty much everything. So we'll copy and paste it, grab a full bar of chords that can be from your verse one, your verse two. We made a cut here. We also have a cut and a drop. So a full one, grab it from there so we don't have to think too hard about it. Then we know those chords are going to continue. So let's copy and paste that into verse two, just like that. Alrighty. So when we have this going in, I decided that I also wanted more coming out of this. So if we mute, let's just listen back. So if we come right out of the drop and all we have is the pad synth, this is what we get. So you guys noticed when we played that back, this heavy synth right here is carrying on and it's gross. Now, why is that? It's because of the software instrument. It's just the settings that are on it. Now, could we adjust these and tinker with that so it stops right there? Yes. Could we also throw a gain plugin so it stops? Yes. There are many options. However, what we're going to use now is more automation. So just like our gain plugin we had up here in our chord stack, we have this automation. We're also going to add automation to our instruments as they come out of the drop. So the other thing I decided I wanted was this heavy synth. So if we copy and paste our heavy synth, we made a cut right here. So we cut that section. If we pull this out, you guys can see that the full chord is not in there. So the way to fix that, one way to do this instead, so we don't have to deal with this, is instead of muting the section, we could have just pulled the MIDI track back. But that's not what we did. So we're just going to come into the editor, press E, extend those so we get the full chord. It's a lot of noise. And then we'll have our full thing right there. All right, so when we play this back now, we have our pad synth and heavy synth. It's a lot, in my opinion. So what we're going to do is add automation to this heavy synth. And we're going to go ahead. You guys can see it's already on here. We'll just go ahead and get rid of it. Go to your plugins. I want you guys to go to EQ, single band EQ. I use this a lot for my automations. Could you do this with a normal EQ? Yes, but I like this single band for just these things like this. So what I want to do is make this heavy synth chill out a little bit. So if we just listen to this, we put it on high cut. So think about removing the high frequencies. If I bring this all the way up to 2000, we shouldn't be cutting anything. So we should just get the normal sound. It's almost like this plugin is off. Now listen as we bring it down. Kind of fades into the mist. Yeah, it's a nice feeling. So what we want to do is we're going to press A, pull up your automation table, click on frequency. Guys, watch the heavy synth track. Turns to frequency. Now we can click here and we get an automation. So what we can do, I'm going to watch what I'm doing down here. A bar or half a bar. Oh, no, a whole bar before the cooldown during the drop. I want to drop the frequency of this heavy synth. So it kind of resolves out of the drop, transitions. So we're going to put an automation node. You can click anywhere, click on bar 40. And then if you hit the semicolon on your keyboard, it'll snap it right to bar 40 perfectly. And then we want another automation node. Do the same thing, click, snap. And then we're going to bring it down to, I decided 2750 was a really nice sound. So we're going to bring this down. And then if you can't get 2750, that's okay. Do it by taste. But if you need to zoom in, that happens a lot. All right, 2750 right there. All right, so if we listen back now, much nicer, much better. Okay, to keep this feeling going, to transition out of the drop, we want some kind of beat. We don't want to just drop off everything. So we're going to grab a couple pieces of our drums, and we kept the same pattern. So this was easy to just copy and paste over. So our drop progression, we want our kick drum, our heavy kick, to go through the cooldown into the verse here. So we're going to take all this information, copy it over, semicolon on the cooldown just to make sure it's perfectly in line. And then what we end up with is a kick drum. And you guys can hear that side chain. It's still working, so that's good. So we also want, I decided that it would be great also to have these snare drums here. So we're just going to take all the snare drums, copy and paste them in here. So grab all these guys. And this is where your relative value can come into some handiness too. If you go down to relative value, we have these copied. This will want to sit where they were previously. So if they're on our section right here, so if they're 2 clicks in, it's going to relative value drop these 2 clicks in right there. So once we got that, we can go back to absolute value, make sure you're aware what snap setting you're on. So now we have our drums and we can hear this. Much better. All right. So then, of course, our cooldown is just going to be this. We're just going to have the pad synth, the heavy synth, and some drums to kind of carry us through. Then we have our downer down there. So once we get to the verse, obviously, we'll need our vocal to come back in. So if we have our vocal from V1.5, it looks like it's untouched. We'll go ahead, copy and paste this to V2. So then we have this whole section of music. All right, so we need something new at that point, right? So I decided the hi-hats would be a great addition. So we're going to go ahead, grab our hi-hats, and get them onto verse 2. So you guys can grab just one of these, one that's untouched as far as cuts go. So it's lined up nicely. Goes from 49 to 53. That's perfect. Copy and paste this guy. So now we have... So you can feel like the energy is kind of awkward, yeah? So what we're going to do is automate the hi-hats as well. So we had our single EQ on the heavy synth. We're going to kind of do the same thing with the hi-hats. I want them to be less in your face. We want the vocal and kind of just the instruments to take a back seat. So our vocal sits up here and we're just kind of listening to the song versus the drop where we're paying attention more to the instruments and everything. So let's go ahead, stick the same thing on our hi-hats. We'll do a single EQ. Go to high cut, click on this guy, It should pop up frequency. There's no node yet. Just click within the track and we have our node. We have our initialized frequency. So by the time we get to verse 2, I decided that 4950 was a pretty sweet cut. So if we listen to how that affects it, very present, still there, but much less in your face. So we're going to take these to 4950. So if we already did that, we can create a node, put that there. But we want the rest of these to be at 2000 frequency, so no high cut. So we're just going to drop a node at the end here, and we're going to lift these up. So we got 2000, we got 2000. So that gives us, in the drop, this very present hi-hat, and then by the time we get to the verse, it's chilled out a little bit. So I also decided by the time we got to the second verse, just all this, just drums and these instruments, it just wasn't enough. I want to hear something else again. So what I decided is the guitar art would be a great addition to the verse. We're making everything kind of come back faster. In the first section of the song, first half of the song, we're slowly introducing everything, kind of bringing it in. But then once we're finished with that drop, you've heard more or less every instrument that will be in the song thus far. So it's already been introduced. So let's get it back in there. So now with the guitar art. So I decided at the same time, once we get to this point, the heavy synth is still too present. So I'm actually going to drop the EQ even further. But what I'm going to do is take this, create a new node here. During our cooldown, we're going to let this heavy synth continue to fall off the top end until it's at a point in which I feel like is comfortable. So I put it down at 740 again to taste. If you can't get 740, 750 probably fine, but I want 740. There we go. So now if we listen back. Watch this guy. Uh-huh. Now you can hear that guitar arp. So this is kind of a mixing technique, even though we're doing this for flavor, not more or less. So after this, more automation. Why? Because I'm not happy with this screaming lead. So let's listen to what this is doing too. So not too bad, but I still want to add an EQ to the screaming lead and kind of do the same thing we did to the heavy synth. So we're going to go ahead, pull this up, get an EQ, single band, high cut, click, get an EQ in here. So I went ahead and followed the heavy synth in terms of location and frequency. So if we have our heavy synth down here, it's at 2000. We'll lock it in on bar 40, and then it drops down to 2750. So by the time the cooldown starts, if there's any lag left in this screaming lead, we get a little bit of it, but it's not as obtrusive in the song. So 2750. And there we have it. All right, so just one last piece here. I decided that our vocal sweep was going to be a really cool thing to continue on through. So if we have our vocal sweep, I thought it would be a good transition to have for the second verse. So we'll grab that from earlier, pop it a bar between the second verse, and then going into the build-up, we'll also have it here. So all together with our automations into the second build-up, we have and stop there for now. So we got our cool down, our verse two. And then from there, we got a few changes to make for a second build up. Just want to make it a little different, get into the drop, and then we'll close the song out. Great job.